compared to most interviews that I do, and with as long as your career is, well, I don't want to gloss over any of it. Just in the interest of brevity, we're going to have to a little bit. So you're originally from the Upper East Coast. I'm curious, what your childhood was like, and was there a pivotal moment or a catalyst that made you decide, A, you wanted to join the military, and B, be a frogman?
Uh, I was a Navy family. My dad was a kid from Brooklyn who wanted to go study engineering, but the family didn't have the money, so he went to Merchant Marine Academy, Kings Point, up New York. And at those years, this was the 40s, anything south or west of New York was uncivilized. You just didn't go there. So he went to Kings Point, but unfortunately, or fortunately, depending how you look at it, graduated summer 43, so he went right to the war in the Pacific. And he was there till about 51 before he really came back to the States, met my mom, married. So I was born into a Navy family. We lived in Hawaii, Florida, Virginia Beach. In fact, my dad's last job in the U.S. was he was the chief engineer on the last conventionally powered aircraft carrier, the USS Independence. And then in 68, he got assigned to Iran, Tehran, Iran, where he was advising the Shah's Navy. So we grew up in Iran. We went over about fifth grade. I was, my brother and sister.
What was that like?
It's wonderful. Iran's absolute best Are you a skier?
I'm not, but
Best skiing in the world.
wow.
And wonderful people. The weather is great. It's amazing country that's been hijacked by this revolutionary regime that's just been despotic and horrible. But so when my junior year, my counselor at school says, "Hey, you should think about applying to college." I'm going, "Okay, where do you think?" "Well, what do you think?" I like skiing, so I get accepted to Colorado State. And my dad had never talked to me about college at all. So I come home, I show him, "Hey, Dad, look, I'm accepted to Colorado State." And he goes, "Oh, that's really cool." And I'm a long-haired kind of hippie. This was the year of the 70s, 60s and 70s. The hippie trail went through Tehran to Afghanistan, and we used to hitchhike it during the summers, in fact. But so my dad said to me, "That's wonderful. That's great. How are you going to pay for that?" And I never had a job growing up in Iran or anything. So he said, "Don't you do that?" I said, "No, you're 17. You're on your own now." Ooh. So a day or two later, he comes up to me, "But I got an idea for you. You join the Navy, I can get you into school, and they're going to pay you to go to school." I'm long hair, Ken. This was the height of protests against Vietnam, 72, 73. No one's going in the military. And my dad saying, "But look, I'll get you, you enlisted in here, I can get you, you could go to this Naval Academy prep school." My dad had taught engineering at the Naval Academy when we were young kids. And if you don't like it for a year, you could get out and get your GI Bill and go back, grow your hair back, and go be a ski bum. So that's how it all ended up.
Wow.
So I enlisted, did a year in Newport, Rhode Island, where I was born, then just kept rolling it on to the Naval Academy, then into the fleet. Did 4 years in the fleet, because at that time, Naval Academy would not let you go into the SEAL community. The Navy was really off-ramping SEALs. They didn't want to pay for them. They didn't really need them after Vietnam having been created. In Vietnam, the war's over. What do we need them for? So it wasn't a viable career path. Now, I think we were under, I want to say about 1,500 SEALs in all in those years, and only few 06s, not very much. And then I lateral transferred. But back to the point, grew up in a Navy family. But the tipping point was really, I'm at the Naval Academy, and we had a post-Vietnam leadership colonel who was telling us, "Hey, I got this SEAL buddy. I want him to come and meet you all." And but I've been pushing him. He was supposed to go last week, but he'd been working on his Porsche and dropped this screwdriver into his one good eye. And I was like, "Tommy, what are you going to do?" He said, "Well, I'll call a mechanic." He didn't care about his eye. He cared about his car. But it, of course, was Tommy Norse. And after spending a day listening and talking to Tommy Norse, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I was a physical guy. I was in sports all the time. I just thought that would be something I could be good and I'd enjoy.
Yeah. Did you know much about the SEAL teams prior to that? I mean, because they weren't
Not
very.
really. We didn't, at the Naval Academy, it wasn't really, we knew Tommy Norris, we knew Mike Thornton, we knew our Medal of Honor winners. We'd heard what happened to them. But again, Vietnam ended while I was at the Naval Academy. So it not a lot of knowledge. But after meeting those guys and seeing what they did and hearing their stories, very inspirational, and the physical aspect of it. So you kind of went into it different understanding of than what you were doing on a ship, and I like that physical aspect.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, especially now. I mean, even when I went through, you could do some research. You know, there was a couple of motivational videos, and you know, some of the Vietnam books, you know, had been out for a little while, the Dick Marcinko books and such, and there still wasn't a lot of research that could be done. Whereas now, it's like you can almost game.
Oh my God, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. I'm curious, you know, did you even really know what to expect showing up at Buds at that time, or was it just kind of fly by the seat of your pants?
Just fly by the seat of my pants. But I liked challenges. I liked physical. I'd heard all these horror stories about Hell Week and all that kind of stuff. So you went in, my attitude was, okay, bring it on, man.
Yeah.
That competitive nature. You're going to make me break, I'll get you. Now, my fear was the cold, because I get cold. I was thin. I think at the time I was 165 something. So I didn't know if I could take the cold. But the physical stuff, I wanted to. I thought, wow, what a challenge to take this on and see how it was. So.
Do you remember how many students started in your class and finished?
Yeah, we had 8 officers and 120 enlisted. We had 13 original, me and another officer, and then 5 rollbacks. So we graduated 18. We lost the other officer, a guy named Bill Sadlick. He went SDVs and hyped off on a dive, lost him. And so yeah, 18 of our class. And we were a winter class. We started in the winter, which has always had a little higher attrition.
Is there a single memory from going through Buds specifically that stands out for you?
Oh, hell yeah. It wasn't me that remembered. Did you ever meet a guy named Rick Holman?
Yeah.
Rick was my swim buddy.
Oh, wow.
So when we first showed up, here's your swim buddy, you in the swim. We show up Sunday, like we all did, to get in the tent for Hell Week, right? We get in the tent, lay down. I smell beer, heavy beer. I looked over. He's shit-faced. I go, are you out of your ever luck? Oh, we were at the football game. They were at Chargers game, and the beers. He's a big beer drinker, but he was pretty sloshed when we went to. But I said to him, "What the fuck are you thinking about?" He looks at me and says, "Bob, it doesn't matter. You know we're just going to do this." In that moment, I realized we're just going to do it.
Wow.
And I think that really emphasized to me what our community is all about. Doesn't matter what it is, just do it. Kind of like the Nike ad.
Yeah.
And the guys who make career and do well are the guys who just figure it out and do it.
Did you find yourself relaying that message throughout your entire career when, especially at later stages, when you're at the upper echelons of SEAL leadership, kind of giving those, we're about to go to war type speeches? Did you find yourself saying that again?
Oh, of course. In Bosnia, I mean, Afghanistan, no, I just come back and relieved Bill McRaven the last day of August 2001. And now 11 days later, we're going. And a lot of these kids we had never been in combat or anything. So,
Looking at your career from when you graduated Buds up until September 11th, you did a number of deployments. You did a stint at Development Group. Can you kind of summarize what that pre-9/11 career was like for you?
I think I was pretty, I was kind of the duty Judy, if you're familiar with that. When they needed someone, they sent me, so to speak. And I was fortunate I had a CO who believed in me when I first got out of Buds. Because remember, I'd come out of the fleet, so I just put on lieutenant. So I'm already behind the career path. So they put me, my first deployment was as an OIC. I didn't have an AOIC or anything. So I hopped right into an OIC billet.
That's a fire hose.
Yeah, but I had guys like Rick Holman, Rick Kaiser, John Cook, really professional grade guy, a couple former Vietnam guys who were bad dudes, you know. So I did that, and then I went from there to SEAL Team 6. And then from there out to Japan, did a year there with 7th Fleet, then to Philippines with the units, then back to the East Coast. So every year or two, they moved me. I was doing something different. So I consider that fortunate. So that got me, you know, I was doing the planning for Panama. I stood up and ran a task force in Bosnia. I ran a task force in Kuwait. So I was always deployed, so to speak, and operational in terms of components, which really set the stage why I was so confident when we went into Afghanistan, because it seemed like I'd just been doing that all my career.
Yeah. If I researched it correct, your stint at Development Group was in 1988.
Boy, now this is the test quiz.
Well,
so,
I guess,
but yeah, I think it was somewhere around. 88, 89, right in that period.
I mean,
right up to Panama.
Okay. How would you contrast how it was when you were there versus how it is now?
Yeah, two completely different worlds. Scale, focus. As you remember, and I was recruited, I screened by Dick Marcinko.
Wow. And
my screening test consisted of, I was deployed in the Philippines, and they were out there. I get called to show up in so-and-so bar at 8 o'clock at night for your screening. I crawled out of it the next morning at 6 o'clock, go in, and that afternoon they called me, okay, you're screened, okay, you know. So it was a different, you know, Dick was a very colorful character. And I don't think anyone could have accomplished what he did, you know, to buck the system, fight the system, to establish the command, especially within the Navy, because there were not a lot of Navy fans for SEALs and of Dick himself, but he had a champion that helped him stand it up. And then right when I got there, he was going through all his challenges, investigations and stuff. And in the small world category, him and my father became drinking buddies. When my father came back from Iran, he did what I did when he retired from the military, was working for defense companies in Iran until it collapsed in '79. Came back to DC with one of those companies, and his passions were reading, the ponies, and happy hour. So he'd be at Charlestown, watch Belmont on the ponies on weekend, read vociferously, but like the happy hour. So there was a little, have you ever been to Fort Myers?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. If in the O Club, there's a little bar down in the bottom. Him and Dick Marcinko would have drink there.
Oh, wow.
And my father was not a big fan of me going into the SEALs, because I did 4 years on a ship. I ended up being navigator. My career was going pretty good. And when I lateral transfer, he called me and said, you know, I never did think you're too bright. I just didn't think you're this dumb. There's no future in that SEAL shit. I said, fuck it, Dad. I'm going to do it. It'll be fun. But it wasn't until he met Dick and was having drinks and hanging out with Dick when Dick was kind of locked down in D.C. that he called me one day and said, hey, this SEAL thing may be okay. It may play out okay for you. Okay, Dad, thanks, man. But so you went through that period of his leadership. And then you had some leaders who were not as comfortable in that environment, bucking the system, fighting for what the command needed. But there's still good guys. Murphy, what was his first name? Rick Woolard, John Santos. We went through a succession where Dick had been there for many years till then. Then there was pretty quick successions of CO. So there's a lot of turmoil and trial, but the culture that Dick had established, where these were all his drinking buddies, the enlisted guys ran it, the officers were kind of figureheads. That culture permeated, and as you came into the team, into the command as a young JO, it was the alpha dogs.
Yeah.
And if you weren't willing to stand up, challenge, and go head to head with the alpha dogs, you're going to have some problems as an officer. They'd walk right over you. And of course, I was with Red Team initially for about a year, and then I went to Blue Team, and it was rough and tumble.
Yeah. Well, so back then, what was the primary focus compared to what it is now?
Still CT, but primarily the Achille Lauro. Terrorism at that point was they grab an American, they take them hostages. So our main focus was recovering hostages, out of Lebanon, off the Achille Lauro in Italy. So CT in those were primary focus on hostage rescue, going in and recovering people. And that really permeated up until 9/11. 9/11 changed all that. Now we're inside the fight. And to this day, that wasn't really a counterterrorism fight. It was more radical, violent, extremist Islam we were fighting. I think that fight is still alive today. So the CT has become much more expansive, a much wider range of responsibilities and missions.
If you love talk radio, podcasts, and news, the C. Crane CC Radio 3 delivers exceptional spoken word audio. With separate bass and treble controls, you can tune the sound exactly how you like it, and the clarity makes it feel like your favorite host is right there in the room. C. Crane is a returning sponsor on the podcast. Previously, they sent me their Skywave SSB2 to try out, and now that they've sent their new CC Radio 3 over, I can tell you for sure that it's awesome. The CC Radio 3 pulls in long-range AM/FM stations with exceptional reception and includes emergency features like NOAA weather and the 2-meter ham band. It's got all the bells and whistles, clock, alarm, line-in, antenna jacks, memory presets, and it runs on the included power cord or a set of batteries for over 170 hours, making C. Crane reliable no matter where you are. And with the Bluetooth included, you can stream new episodes of Mic Drop, just like this one, on the CC Radio 3 through any smartphone or smart speaker. To order the CC Radio 3, call C. Crane's US-based customer service at 800-522-8863 or visit ccrane.com/drop. That's CCRANE.com/drop and use the code DROP, all caps, all one word, at checkout for 10% off orders over $75. Guys, as you know, I work with a number of different products. One that's easily the most near and dear to my heart from a cause standpoint and a personal relation standpoint is Bubs Naturals. The hat on the coffee table sitting right in front of me belonged to Glenn Doherty. It was a John Deere hat that I gave him. He had it when he tragically passed in Benghazi. And I was fortunate enough to get it back from one of the co-owners of Bubs. He sent it back to me to be able to keep. Bubs Naturals is a tribute to Glenn. He was one of everybody's, he was kind of that guy that was everybody's best friend. I met several people that considered him his best friend, and he was a guy that was impossible not to like, and just, caused happy waves that rippled through every community he was ever a part of. His nickname was Bub, and that's where Bubs Naturals comes from. But it's a lifestyle brand. It's inspired by Glenn. They give a ton to charity. They've donated over $200,000 to charitable causes since their inception in 2018. On Veterans Day, 100% of the proceeds go to the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation, which does phenomenal work helping active duty and children of lost active duty members go to college or scholarships that they've donated a ton, and they also are heavy into the recreation space of helping people do that, because that's what Bub was all about. They have collagen peptides, which I put into my morning routine every single morning, as well as the functional creamer / MCT oil that goes into it as well. They have hydrate or electrolyte drink mixes, which are great for pre-workout, during workout, and post-workout to get all the added sodium, potassium, magnesium, etc. that's required when you deplete it. And they now have Bubs Brew, which is a specialty organic coffee that is also very, very good. It's USDA organic, fair trade. It's Whole30 approved, which is the first time that's happened. It's free of yeast, mold, and aflatoxins. Small lot roasted, guaranteed fresh, and it tastes great. Biggest thing is Bubs is a family company. The way that they started is, again, super close to my heart, with him being one of my closest friends for a long time. And I just can't say enough good things about that company, of the product that they put out, why they started, what they give back to veteran communities and the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation. And I encourage you to go to bubs.com, and now there's a landing page specifically for Mic Drop listeners. Just enter the code Mike, M-I-K-E, all caps, and you get 20% off your first purchase at bubsnaturals.com. So that's www.bubsnaturals.com/Mike. And you can check out the Mic Drop landing page and go support an amazing cause. You mentioned 9/11. You took command 10, 11 days prior to. I would love to get your kind of walking through of that morning and what was going through your mind as you saw those events unfold.
Knowing we were going to war, what we'd have to do, we got the call, I think that day, go to Afghanistan and hunt these guys down, capture them or kill them. And ironically, since I speak Farsi, I used to spend summers in Afghanistan. I knew Afghanistan like the back of my hand. I knew Kandahar. So when we were just planning, and so I was going into Kandahar because I knew that area. I knew the weather based on the time of the year and how it wouldn't affect us as it would up in Kabul north or coming in from the north. So that's number one, starting to think where we were. And number two, taking a bunch of kids, a lot of them who'd never even deployed or hadn't been in combat, and doing the mission. And we've been focused on the maritime environment. Now we would shift, instead of combat diving and draggers and all, hey, we're going to be up in the mountains. You're going to be exposed. So it's just a switch, but it's back to, we were just, let's go do it.
Yeah.
But I was never more confident because of my background, the experience. Is just fate put me as the right guy in the right place, or so I felt.
Was there any nervousness or anxiousness about going to do it, or was it?
Just about getting guys killed. Yeah, that's it. I knew we could do the missions and stuff, but I didn't want to lose any of our guys.
Yeah. In that, well, I guess before I give a follow-up question on that, at that time, was there any thought process going through your mind, thinking that it would last anywhere near as long as it did? Like,
well, history, having studied wars, what happened there, this is a country of, at the time, 27 million people, all desperately poor, all just trying to survive. And so not knowing what our end objective was, I couldn't foretell the time. I thought, and remember, the call was go capture, kill the guys who had attacked us on 9/11. So when we hit the ground, our guys, I think we had Tommy Donovan, who's now one of our admirals, we put him on the ground, flew in C-130s, put him in the desert southeast of Kandahar. I want to say it was 29 September. So 2 or 3 weeks after 9/11, we're putting guys on the ground. And I thought by February, March, we completed the mission. The Taliban were ready to negotiate, ready to have appeasement. We had captured most of the guys, or killed most of the guys we knew. Bin Laden slipped out. Tor Bor got out of the country. So I thought we were going to kind of wrap up the mission and come home. But then they started bringing in a lot more people and forces, big army. I'm going, ooh, we're going to be here a long time. And here's an interesting tidbit. And the reason why I think we were and should still be there per se. And this happened when President Bush came to meet with all the leadership one of his last days when he was president. The event was, I forget the exact date, but he had come down, he and his father came down to Norfolk, where we hosted him on the carrier for commissioning the USS Bush after his father. After that event, we got in helicopters and flew over to Little Creek, and he met with all the senior leaders. Cheney was there with us. I don't remember if Dr. Rice was with us, but we all met, and Bush said this. He said, look, my father fought a very ideological enemy, being the Japanese, but now they're one of our closest allies. And what that meant to me, in Bush's mind, we were going to do in the Middle East exactly what we had done in Asia and Europe. At the end of the war, we didn't bring people home. We left them there. We had forward bases and presence in Europe and Asia for 50, 60 years, not to fight an endless war, but to allow those countries to mature and develop. And I think the Western world is what it is today because of that strategy. So I think his strategy of, and that led into the invasion of Iraq, but having bases in Afghanistan, Iraq, Oman, Qatar, UAE, and Kuwait for the next 40 or 50 years would have allowed the region to develop and not be suppressed by radical Islam and those things. I think that strategy would have worked. So I think that's why we were there so long. That all changed, of course, when we saw the change in administrations. The Obama regime came in, and one of their first policy decisions was we're going to pivot to the Pacific. And what that really meant, we're leaving the Middle East. So I think the strategy would have worked if it had been consistent, but that goes back to I didn't understand why we were there. And so that I was surprised the length, but I think understandably so because of the strategy.
So if that was done towards the end of his presidency, when he met with you guys, and
when he told us all that, I want to say it was October, November before he changed administrations.
So from 9/11 until then, was the understanding, at least from where you were at and kind of at that level in military leadership, was there kind of an unknown as to why we're still there and what the objective is? Because it seems to be a recurring theme with, having so many people that I've interviewed that have been there at all different levels. Nobody really had a grasp or a full understanding of what it meant to win and kind of the arc understanding of why we were there.
Yeah, I think that's true. I don't think the administration articulated that clearly. So I think that's a very true statement. But again, if you look, here's some interesting tidbits. On the day we went into Afghanistan on 9/11, how many U.S. troops you think were allocated to PACOM at that time?
Like the Guam contingent and everything?
All the PACOM theater of operations, how many troops did the Pacific commander have allocated for him to move and use within the region?
I guess it would be 7,000 to 10,000.
350,000 troops between Guam, Okinawa, Yokosuka, Hawaii, because those, and even West Coast. And when I say allocated, the PACOM commander could take those troops, move and do whatever he wants without talking to the Secretary of Defense. They had about 350,000 allocated. In Europe, it was about 250,000. In CENTCOM, it was 12,000. So you could see the emphasis up to that point wasn't there. At the height of the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, I think we got up to about 280,000, but we never changed the numbers from the other two theaters. And that's why it was such a strain on the services, because they had to pony up more people to be deployed, which really was, as they say, was break. But again, I think, and again, it's hard for me. It was a war, but not like any other war we'd had. We controlled the air. We had dining halls. We had chows. There was only safety danger when you went out in the field. And after the whole 14 years, I think we had a total of about 6,000 or 6,100 fatalities over the entire war. That's unbelievable. So, we lost more than that in suicides every year. Car accidents, anything else. So, but the presence, that U.S. presence in that region and places, defined what the world was and where the West was going. Now, when you pull that out, now it's we've lost a lot of trust and confidence from others, and so calling them a war was challenging. It was forward presence for the influence and to encourage and support these countries to develop outside of the sphere of hostile influence.